Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. Today, we have a really exciting guest. Stephanie Skryzowski with 100 Degrees Consulting is here to talk all about how understanding your numbers will grow your bottom line and your impact.
You're listening to the Legal Paige podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Now, Stephanie is a chief financial officer that helps purpose-driven leaders better understand and use their numbers to make smart decisions for their business. She is the founder and CEO of 100 Degrees Consulting, which works with clients around the globe to help them grow their bottom line and their impact. Stephanie also coaches busy entrepreneurs to build their businesses while sustaining their lives. When she is not crunching the numbers, Stephanie is traveling the world with her husband and toddler daughter. Alrighty, you guys, this episode is jam-packed with all kinds of good things on understanding those dollar bills. So let's get to this episode, Legal Pagers.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today to the Legal Paige podcast. You guys, I am so honored that Stephanie Skryzowski is here to talk about how understanding your numbers will grow your bottom line and your impact. Hi, Stephanie.
Hey, Paige. How are you?
I'm so good. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so obviously I met you at Creative at Heart, which is a conference, you guys, in North Carolina. It's wonderful. You should totally check it out. We're going to pull that plug or push that plug right there. But Stephanie and I were both educators at Creative at Heart, and I learned she is the chief financial officer, money's guru, super smart lady. And I immediately was like, oh my gosh, Stephanie, you have to be on my podcast because people love to hear about things on this podcast that they don't like to think about too much. And we, try to tell them in like a nice, gentle way. But Stephanie had like jam-packed breakout session and tons of people mentioned you, Stephanie, and how wonderful your session was. So I unfortunately didn't get to go to the session because I also was hosting a breakout session at the same time. So I was like, what better way than to have my own personal session with you? Anyway, so like I said, I know a lot about you. But I would love for you to tell the legal pagers here that are tuning in who you are, what you do, how you got started, and why you love doing what you do.
Yeah. So thank you so much. It was awesome to meet at Creative at Heart. Yeah. So I'm a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, and I really help purpose-driven leaders of small businesses, of nonprofits, really understand and use their numbers so that they can make smarter decisions for their business and really grow their bottom line and have the greater impact that I think we all want to have. And so I do like one-on-one work with business leaders, with nonprofits, and everything from bookkeeping to budgeting and helping them prepare for taxes and kind of all things finance and all things money. And so got started in this, almost 4 years ago now, when I was working for a nonprofit and really thought that there was more of a market out there than just serving this one organization that I was working with. And so I just sort of started cold emailing organizations saying, hey, I think you might need a CFO. Do you want to talk? And people said yes. And here we are.
I love that. So the biggest question that I have, and probably everyone listening, is what is the difference between like a CFO and then just like an accountant? Or a CPA, obviously accountant. And I get them all confused and other people get them confused. And where would you be at like in your business if you need a CFO versus?
Yeah, that is such a good question because I kind of think of like there's 4 different finance professionals that you might want or you might have in your business. So you have a bookkeeper. So your bookkeeper is the person that is like maintaining your day-to-day books. So, in QuickBooks or whatever you're using for your accounting system, making sure all the transactions are in there, and then maybe giving you your P&L or your balance sheet, like your regular reports that you might look at on a monthly basis. So they're keeping your numbers clean on a monthly basis. Your accountant, that's usually the person that's doing your taxes. Most people are using the word accountant and CPA sort of interchangeably. If you have somebody doing your taxes, you'll want that person to be a CPA. So I'm actually not a CPA, so I don't actually do anyone's taxes. I work with your CPA and make sure the numbers look really clean and give them projections so that they can accurately tell you how much in estimated taxes you should pay, but I'm not a CPA, so no taxes over here. So your CPA accountant does your taxes. A CFO, which is what I do. So I'm helping you kind of look at bigger picture strategy when it comes to your numbers. And so maybe I would take the work that the bookkeeper is doing and take your P&L and then analyze it and figure out, okay, where are we maybe spending too much money? Where can we afford to invest? Are we saving enough money for taxes? How are we going to grow this particular revenue stream? So I am basically taking the work that the bookkeeper does and then taking it to the next level and helping you strategize to grow the business. Then the last person, I said there were 4, the last person is like a financial advisor. And so that person might be helping you maybe on the personal side of things, like how to invest, like where to put your retirement funds, what stocks to invest in, things like that. So I don't do that either. That's like a certified financial advisor or financial planner. So you may or may not have one of those in your business, but you might have one of those in your personal life. So my business, we do bookkeeping and then the CFO stuff. We like refer out any tax things. And then if anybody needs investment advice, that is also not me.
Okay, that was so helpful. I feel like I just got so much clarity on the 4 different financial people that you may need to hire in your business. And everyone tuning in, I'm sure you guys did too. That was pretty much the most straightforward answer I've ever heard. So again, Stephanie, why you're so wonderful. You just like give it to us straight and tell us what we need to know. Okay, so you're here to talk as a CFO for businesses. So you're really like analyzing people's numbers and strategizing, figuring out expenses, things that maybe they could do better or do differently, and using those numbers, like you have said multiple times, to grow your bottom line and your impact for your business. So let's just jump right into it. I love it when my guests just teach the whole time and really just tell the listeners what they want to hear. So I would love to hear kind of how you start with building your budget and planning for profit as a business. Because I think that's obviously why we all go into business, is to make a profit. And I think too many of us are often just like, meeting the bottom line and like just breaking even. And we've been doing it for a few years. If you're one of those that are listening right now, like this is where Stephanie can help you.
Yeah. So when I first talk to different entrepreneurs, business owners, pretty much everyone tells me that they have a P&L, they have their profit and loss statement. So they're like, report that shows them looking backwards, historical, how did I do last month or last year? They have that. But what pretty much nobody has is a budget. And so that's like looking forward, looking into the future, into how much that we're going to make, how much we're going to spend, how much we're going to have left over. Nobody's doing that. So I think a lot of people get really hung up on the word budgeting because we think of budgets as very limiting and like, oh, we have to cut things, and budget just feels icky. And so really what budgeting is, and what I try to help entrepreneurs work through, is budgeting is just planning your profit. So we're just mapping out everything into the future so we can plan our profit. So it's not about like scarcity and cutting things back and limiting ourselves. It's really just creating a roadmap to where we want to be. And so what I love to do is really start with the revenue. So the budget is sort of structured like your P&L, like your profit and loss, where your revenue is on the top, your expenses are on the bottom, and then your net income, or what you have left over, is at the very, very bottom. So when we start at the top and think about revenue, a lot of people come to me with goals, like big goals. Hey, I want to hit $100,000 this year. I want to make $500,000 this year. But then get really, really overwhelmed. Like, but how am I going to get there? I'm only making like $2,000 a month now.
Right.
And so what I like to do is kind of break it down and use this sort of like building block method where we take our big annual revenue goal, and let's just say it's $100,000 for easy math, because I know that math off the top of my head. So if we then break that down by month, that means we have to bring in about $8,300 a month. And then we're like, okay, well, that seems like a little bit more doable. But still, what if you're only making $1,000, $2,000 a month? How are you ever going to get to $8,000 a month? So then we think about like, okay, how much are we selling our product or service for? If you have a package that you're selling for $2,000, then you need to sell 4 of those per month to get to that $8,000. And so when you break it all the way down like that, it is no longer like this big, scary math problem. It's more of like a marketing and a sales problem. Like, okay, well, if I'm selling 1 of those right now a month, what do I need to do to scale up to be selling 4 of those a month? And so I think people just get really, really overwhelmed by like big 6-figure numbers, especially numbers that we've never hit before. And so by breaking it all the way down, and I was just doing this in my business, I have a goal that I want to hit this year. And I did the math, broke it all the way down. And I was like, oh, I just need to sign 2 more clients. And so to me, then that means that, okay, if I need to sign 2 more, I need to get on the phone with 10. If I need to get on the phone with 10, then I need to like email 50. And so then it's a whole different task that is way more achievable because we already know how to do the sales and marketing piece. So that's the way I like to start, by budgeting the revenue piece of our budget.
That's amazing. Not only because you completely turned it on its head with money being like at people's forefront of their minds. And that's what's scary and like limits all of us. I think it's this pushback that we always have as specifically creatives in the online world is we don't like numbers. We don't like thinking about our expenses. We like this like, illustrious 6 figures that you keep talking about. And that's like thrown around in the industry a lot. But I love how you just broke that down, to $8,300. That seems so doable. The reason is because my mind went off and was like, that's less than $10,000. And that $10,000 mark is still scary for lots of people. Like, oh my gosh, I have to make $10,000 a month. But it just under that seems way more doable. And then you're like, okay, this isn't even about money. It's about like, this is a new marketing plan. And this is a new, like, how are we going to get prospective clients in the door plan? And that is so much easier for creatives to understand and like analyze and figure out and like accomplish, which is so awesome. Okay, so plan for your profit first in your budget is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. Start by building the revenue building blocks, because I think at the end of the day, when we are thinking about our goals for our business, we all have a revenue goal. Maybe our revenue goal is only 20,000. Maybe it's 2 million. Like it doesn't matter what it is, but you can use this methodology no matter what it is.
Okay. So I know we're going to get into this and you can just tell me if this is coming up soon. So if you want to like meet and make 100,000, as in maybe pocket in cash in your own self, then how do we get there with like expenses? Is this the point where we have to add expenses in and then we might need to go back and look at what profit is coming in the door?
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So once we kind of figure out our revenue goals, then we move down on the P&L to the expenses. And basically like, how are we going to take this revenue that's coming in and then divvy it up between taxes? Because we can't get around our taxes. We got to pay those. Our expenses for our business, what we're paying ourselves, our owners pay, and then profit. So we want to make sure that we always save something like aside. So we've got like a rainy day fund for the business. So we always want to make sure we're taking a profit. And so these percentages, if any of your listeners have read Profit First.
I was just going to say, I just read the book. This is like Profit First.
Yes. So I use like a modified version of Profit First, and I like it because I like the concept of Profit First. It's very easy to read. If you hate math, if you hate numbers, you will be able to get through the book and you'll probably enjoy it and probably be super motivated to like dive into your numbers. So that I love it. There are some good like benchmarks and percentages that you can use to kind of guide your own financial management so that you don't feel like you're just operating blindly, just like stabbing in the dark with like, how much should I be spending on my business? This gives you some good guidelines. if you've read it, the couple of things I don't like are opening like 10 different bank accounts or how many of our bank accounts he recommends you open. For me, that's too much. And I'm a numbers person. I don't want to manage 10 different bank accounts at 2 different banks. So I have 2 bank accounts for my business. One is a business checking account that all of my revenue comes in, all of my expenses go out. And then I have a business savings account where I put aside my profit and my taxes. So I keep it really simple, and that works for me. I also have clients that have, I think, like 6 or 8 different bank accounts at 2 different banks, and they do profit first, like by the book, and it works for them. That's fine. It doesn't work for me. So it also, like when I'm teaching people, I try to like keep it easy. So keep a little modified profit first.
That's so good to hear, because those bank accounts in that book, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like overwhelming. I don't know how to do all of these bank accounts, but that's good to know that a CFO is telling us right now, like, you can still do this, you guys. Just get a savings account and a checking account. But I'm guessing what you're going to say next is like, you have to be very specific with that savings account. And you really do have to just like lock that money in there.
Exactly. So when we're thinking about like how much money, so we have this revenue bucket, right? So every month, if we're making, $10,000, just imagine that $10,000 in this overflowing bucket of cash, and that's your revenue. So every month you want to allocate that $10,000 in revenue to those 4 different areas. So taxes, your operating expenses, your owner's pay, so what you're paying yourself, and then your profit. And so the percentages I recommend for businesses that are, on the smaller side, like under 500,000 in annual revenue, which is, most people that we're probably talking to.
Probably everybody on here.
Okay, cool. So like under 500,000. So we want to, basically, so take that revenue bucket, your $10,000, allocate 15% of that to taxes. So at the end of every month, you see how much you made, you take 15% of it, you sock it away in that savings account for your taxes. That way, when the tax bill comes, when you work with your CPA or your accountant to do your taxes, you've always got the cash to pay it. The other thing I sock away at the end of the month is 10% to profit. And so 10% of that revenue, which, if we have $10,000 in our revenue bucket, $1,000 of that goes into profit. So that also sits in your savings account, and that can be used, you can use your profit. It's not to say that, it's got to sit there forever, but it's great to have a 3 to 6 month reserve in the bank. So if no more money comes into your business, you can still pay yourself. You can still pay maybe your team, make all your expenses. So set aside 10% in profit. Then, and this is the one area where people, like pretty much nobody was doing our Creative at Heart sessions, the 2 breakouts that I did, I had people raise their hand if they were paying themselves. And less than half of people raised their hand and said, yes, I'm paying myself consistently.
Crazy.
So, I know. I'm like, how are you living? But so people are not paying themselves consistently. So what we're saying here is that you've got $10,000 in revenue. Your owner's pay, what you're paying yourself, should be about 45% of your revenue each month. And so again, use the $10,000 example, that's paying yourself $4,500. Most entrepreneurs are probably not doing that.
Yeah, you guys, that's a good living wage, and more than lots of people that are in W-2 land. But we just often forget to do that. I mean, you totally hit the nail on the head there. I've had multiple people ask me too, legally, how do I pay myself? And I was like, just do it consistently.
Exactly.
For tax purposes. They just want to know that you're consistently paying yourself every 2 weeks or every month, or even if you want to do it weekly and break it down a little bit more. But I love that you just put a really easy percentage number on that monthly.
Because I think that people have that question too. Well, is it too much? How much am I supposed to pay myself? I mean, you pay yourself whatever you want, really. I think you can get into the legalities of the way your business is structured and how you should be paying yourself. But most people that are, sole proprietors are basically just transferring money from your business account to your personal account. Simple. That's it. Mm-hmm. It's very, very simple. So then if you're following along and adding up the percentages that I just talked about, taxes 15%, profit 10%, Owners pay 45%. That leaves expenses 30%. So when you are thinking about how much you're spending on your business expenses, they should be about 30% of your revenue. And so in this case, if we're still using the example of $10,000 in revenue, your expenses every month should be about $3,000. So it's, and I had this question, I've gotten this question a couple of times. Well, wait, so do I not pay any of my bills until the end of the month when I have my revenue? And then I pay all my bills. I'm like, no, you pay your bills throughout the month as they're, you get charged online for different purchases, but it's just good to be able to look back and make sure that your expenses each month are hovering around 30% of your revenue. You don't have to wait till the end of the month till all the revenue's in the bucket and then allocate the expenses out. Pay your expenses as you would, but just make sure they're kind of hovering around 30%. Now, there's going to be exceptions to this, right? These percentages are not set in stone. There are going to be months when your expenses are higher. And so maybe you take a lower owner's pay that month, or maybe your expenses are lower and you want to buy Christmas presents for your family, so you take higher owner's pay. You can do that, but just having these numbers and having a sort of benchmark to work from is really helpful when you're looking at the big picture. Because when we're looking at our year as a whole, both looking back and looking forward, because right now we're talking about a budget. So when we're looking into the future, we want to make sure the next 12 months or so, the percentages that we're working with are kind of hovering around here. Because you could be spending a lot more on your business expenses than you're not paying yourself. And I've worked with clients that, have a $200,000 business revenue. They're paying themselves $1,000 a month. And I'm like, you have a $12,000 salary. You realize that, right? That. And then they resent and hate their business because they're not paying themselves. So it's really important.
Yeah. So a good place to look at P&L statements. This is a really good next step for everybody listening into. I think this operating expense budget of 30% is huge. Because I think that will allow you to kind of ballpark where your business is at, whether you need to cut expenses, where if you have under 30%, that's awesome. And you could probably add some marketing and advertising budget into your business to reach that 30%, to probably hopefully bring in a ton more profit. And then that number just keeps increasing as well. So I love the 30% marker, because then that still allows you to set aside enough money for the profit that your business makes as a whole, not you as a person. I think people get that confused. And then, of course, taxes, but then you actually get some owner's pay that you can take home every month that every creative wants. That's why we want to do this. We want to be our own bosses, but we also want to make money, and we want to have enough money to live so we don't have to go back to a 9 to 5. All right. So I love both of those. And then overall, I'm guessing, is there anything more that we need to know about just understanding our cash flow?
Yeah. So cash flow is one of those things that you don't really pay attention to until you have to. So I've asked this question in lots of different sessions I've done too. And I'm like, okay, so who is managing their cash flow by just looking at their bank account and oh, if the balance feels good, then I'm good. Half of the people will raise their hand.
Totally.
And then I asked the question, okay, well, who's managing their cash flow by just ignoring it and hoping for the best? And then the other half raised their hands. So both of those, not really ideal. And so in the freebie download that I'm sharing with your listeners today, there's actually a cash flow forecast in there. And so what pretty much no entrepreneurs are doing are mapping out their future cash flow. And so what we're doing, what I'm recommending is that we map out our revenue and expenses for the next 12 months. That is then in this template that I'm sharing, it's tied to a cash flow. So we can see okay, maybe there's a $5,000 coaching program you really want to invest in right now. So, and it looks like you look at your bank account, it's oh, I got some money in there. Okay, let me do this. But if you do it right now, what you don't know without using a cash flow is maybe that means you're not going to have any cash in the bank in September. So being able to kind of look at your cash flow in the future helps you make better decisions now. So you're not oh my gosh, how am I going to pay my taxes? Or how am I going to pay how am I going to pay myself because I have no money left? Mm-hmm. And so that's the one thing that I just see pretty much nobody doing is mapping out future cash flow.
And that's probably from your previous years of in business, or just mapping out what you think and projecting what's going to come in.
Yeah, exactly. So the cash flow forecast is tied to your revenue and expense projection. So what you think is going to come in and go out over the next 12 months, your cash flow forecast is tied to that. So it can tell you, okay, if you make this big expense now, then 3 months from now, here's what your cash flow is going to look like. Here's what your cash balance, the amount of money you have in the bank, here's what that's going to look like if you do that right now. Awesome.
That's perfect. That's really good to know. Yes, I agree with you. I don't think anybody's doing cash flows. Projections. I think a lot of us just live month to month, or every 3 months. We kind of look at it in quarters for our businesses. I know that's like an easier concept for a lot of entrepreneurs as well, but this was super helpful, Stephanie. So thank you so much. That was awesome. I mean, thinking about profit, who doesn't want to think about profit more than our expenses? Okay. So before we of course, tell everyone what this awesome freebie is that you're going to give them, I always love, this is a Legal Paige podcast after all, and you have built this really awesome business called 100 Degrees Consulting. And I think, where you were and where you are now and how you're helping other entrepreneurs is super wonderful. But I always say, well, we run a business and there's legalities that we face running a business. And especially with us as more, professionals that are giving very specific advice to our clients. I think it's really interesting because the legal stuff still impacts you, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I love asking what is a one big legal lesson that you've learned as you've grown 100 Degrees Consulting, and something that I would love for you to share with others on so they can kind of have a light bulb moment and be like, okay, that's something I need to look into a little more or adjust in my business.
Yeah. And unfortunately, my legal mistake also was very costly to myself and my business. So in the beginning, I didn't want to spend any money, right? I think we all are oh my gosh, we just need to hold on to every single penny, because what if nothing else ever comes in? So I did not invest in any legal, professionally done contracts. So the contract that I had with, this is 2 different clients that I experienced this with, and I've learned my lesson now, but 2 different clients. So the contract that I had was something that I created myself based on Googling and finding something online.
You're not the only one. I'd say we had a room full of people and hands were raised at least 50%.
Yeah, I'm this looks legit. It looks professional enough. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. So I had my clients sign this 1-page contract, which looking back now, I'm wow, that was really stupid. But what happened was with one client, they just decided not to pay me for months at a time. And I kept working, which was silly. I asked them to pay me, but I just kept working. And so they eventually were 5 months behind on invoices. And I was okay, well, I'm executing my 30-day termination notice, and we're just going to stop working together. But you still owe me this amount of money. And I think it was literally $25,000, a lot of money. And they were yeah, no, we're not paying. And they came up with reasons why. And they were not really very good reasons at all, but I had no ground to stand on really. So I sent them to, I Googled and found a collections agency, sent them to collections, and then they just never paid. So I lost 5 months of work and $25,000 on that one. It was really painful. So then I didn't learn my lesson yet. I had another client, which was also a very, very high, it was a very, very high priced contract. And that contract was, looking back now, and then after speaking with legal counsel, going through all this drama, was really written very strongly in their favor. And I never had a lawyer review it before I signed it. So it was pretty much they can do anything they want. I can't really do anything or hold them accountable for anything. And I ended up having to return to them, pay back 1 month of their retainer.
Oh no.
And I still truly in my heart feel that the work that I did was high quality. Like I was in the right, but because I couldn't legally protect myself because this contract we had in place was just not good, I lost that money. And so I have since had a lawyer like review my contract. I have new agreements now. So I feel very well protected, but it was very expensive. And it was really hard on me personally because I was like, I suck at this. These people won't pay me. I'm clearly not good at what I do. It was like a major mindset, like trauma, literally trauma for months where I was like, I should just go get a job. Like, I'm really bad at this. Like, these people don't like me. My work is terrible. Like, it was bad.
Yeah. But I mean, seriously though, you're not the only one. Like, people come to me and it's so emotionally distressing on them that they like then think like it's my fault and like I take full responsibility and all of these things. And then it impacts the way that your business runs for not just like a few days. I mean, this is months on end. I literally just had a client that I talked to as well, that it was the same thing. Like it was so in their head that they couldn't even figure out like where in the contract they could start arguing. Like they just didn't even know where to start and where to begin. But Stephanie, this is such good information for people. So I'm going to like follow up here. First thing is first, like you guys need to make sure that if you have Googled your contract or you like copied a contract from a industry friend that gave you something, get it reviewed by an attorney, because that like couple $100 should be like somewhere less than $1,000 usually, or $2,000 will save you thousands in the future. And you don't want to be in a situation where you're reacting to something. You want to be proactive and ensure that the second thing I wanted to say is you have a two-sided contract. So Stephanie, like you got in this situation here where it was so one-sided, unfortunately, to your client's benefit. It's also not good. And I will just say this out loud. I worked in a federal courthouse. I've reviewed tons of contracts. Like if you still have a one-sided contract that's like in your benefit, they can actually use that as an argument that they had no rights and obligations under the contract as well. So for Stephanie, like I'm sure her attorney like looked at her contract and was like, well, we need to bulk this up so that you have all of these rights and responsibilities. For one, ensuring that your payments are met. Two, termination. Then of course, getting all of and collecting all of the money that you have already performed those services for. So really, really a couple big things there for you guys to just ponder and think about legally with your contracts. You know, it happens to everyone. I think it does, like at some point in your business. And everyone's always like, but it usually doesn't happen very often. Like legal suits don't happen to people very often. And I'm like, we're not even talking about a legal suit. Like we're talking about just like a sticky situation or like an issue where a client is going to like come back for something and you have no idea what that's going to be. And it's sometimes, I think, sometimes probably isn't the right word. I would say the majority of the time it's the people that you think are like the best clients. Yeah. And they're not going to do anything. And you put full trust in these people and you think that you're totally secure and protected. And then they just like shove the rug out from under you. So Stephanie, thank you for sharing your situations with us. I know they're not fun to look back on, but again, I just think it's really awesome for a lot of us who own businesses to come on the Legal Paige podcast and just tell people like, you guys, this does happen. And like, we want to help others so that that doesn't happen to them. Now you're ready to go. Like you're legal and secure. You learn from your lessons. But you guys learn from Stephanie's lessons that she's telling you here and like, go do that so that you don't have that situation. And hopefully her story can really impact you so that you don't have that happen in your future. Okay, enough about legal stuff because, you know, I could talk about that all day, just like you could talk about numbers all day. But Stephanie, you were talking about this really awesome like profit playbook and that there's something about a cash flow projection in there. So can you just let our followers and listeners know kind of where that's at, where they can get it and what all it includes so they can go get it right now?
Yeah. So it's at 100degreesconsulting.com/profit. And you will find it's an Excel template that's got a couple different tabs, including like a video walkthrough so you know exactly what you're doing. But basically it's a template to map out your revenue and your expenses. And then that is also tied to another tab, which shows your cash flow. So you can really easily play with the numbers, your projections, what's coming in, what's going out, see how that impacts cash flow. And so it really helps you visualize like 12 months and beyond into your business. You can see exactly, what your business is going to do, how much you're going to make, what your business is going to earn, and then how that impacts your cash balance. So like the money that you have in your bank account. So it's super easy to use, and it's 100degreesconsulting.com/profit.
Perfect. You guys, of course, I am going to get you that link and all of these links for Stephanie. If you need to reach out to her, ask some follow-up questions. If you want to work with her, of course, you can contact her and get to know her a little bit better. But of course, that Profit Playbook, I think it is a gem of a resource. So you guys better go get it, and it's free. So why wouldn't you? Okay, Stephanie, where can everybody come find you?
Yeah. So 100degreesconsulting.com is the website. And then I'm mostly hanging out on Instagram. So my Instagram is stephanie.skry. So just the first 4 letters of my last name because it's way too long. So stephanie.skry on Instagram.
SKRY, that's so much easier. You guys, I had to totally ask Stephanie how to pronounce her last name. So I'm glad it's SKRY. Yes. Of course, you guys, we will link that as well in our show notes. And of course, when we post on social media, so you should be able to easily find Stephanie and get all of her resources. Stephanie, thank you so much for your time and joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Paige.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.